My friends, do you feel it? That nagging sense that you are merely a passenger in your own life? That you are waiting for some grand vessel of opportunity to dock in your harbor? You watch others sail by on tides of success and tell yourself they were lucky or the winds were in their favor. You wait and you wait. But the tide of your own life recedes, leaving you stranded on the barren shores of inaction. In this address, I will show you precisely how to forge your own opportunity and command your own destiny. We have been taught to believe in chance, in the gentle turning of fortune's wheel. But I say to you that history's greatest triumphs were never gentle. They were violent acts of will, victories compelled into existence against all odds. Consider the great General Grant. He had just suffered a terrible fall from his horse, his body racked with pain. At that very moment he receives an order: proceed to Chattanooga, a city on its knees, so beleaguered by the enemy that its surrender was considered a matter of mere days, not weeks. For any other man, it would have been a death sentence, a final, insurmountable obstacle. But for a man of unconquerable will, it was merely the starting point. Look upon the scene. Imagine the picture. The hills surrounding the city were not peaceful. By night, they were aglow with the thousands of campfires of the enemy, a constant, fiery reminder of impending doom. Supplies had been utterly cut off. This was not a strategic challenge, it was a portrait of absolute despair. Lesser men would have written letters, cited their injuries, and waited for the inevitable end. They would have surrendered to the tyranny of circumstance. But Grant, though in immense pain, did not hesitate. He did not waver. He immediately, from his bed of agony, began giving directions for his removal to the new scene of action. His mind was already on the battlefield, his will already forging a path to victory. And how did this injured champion travel? Not in comfort, not in a carriage of state. He was moved onto transports, up the mighty Mississippi and the Ohio rivers. Then, for many miles through the rugged wilderness, he was carried upon a litter borne by horses, every step a jolt of fresh pain to his wounded body. Think of it. Finally, arriving at the city's edge, he was carried the rest of the way on the shoulders of 4 strong men, like a fallen king being brought to his last stand. But he was not a fallen king. He was a commander arriving to impose his will upon chaos. This journey itself was an act of defiance, a testament to the idea that the body is merely a vessel for the unstoppable force of a determined mind. The moment he entered Chattanooga, things changed. The very atmosphere of defeat began to dissipate. Why? Because a master had arrived. A leader who was equal to the situation had taken command. You could feel it in the air. The army felt the sudden firm grip of his power. They had been adrift in a sea of hopelessness, and now a firm hand was on the rudder. He did not wait to heal. He did not ask for time. Before he could even mount his own horse, he ordered an advance. Imagine the electric shock of that command. An advance from a position of certain defeat, ordered by a man who could not even stand on his own. This is the nature of true leadership. It is not about physical prowess. It is about the projection of an indomitable will. And what was the result of this audacious command? The enemy, so confident in their position, contested every single inch of ground, but the tide had turned. The Union soldiers, now infused with the spirit of their leader, pushed forward with renewed vigor. Soon, those very same hills that had glowed with the enemy's fires of impending victory were held by Union soldiers. Now, I ask you, my friend, was this the result of chance? Did the universe simply decide to correct itself? Or were these events compelled, forced into being, by the unshakable, indomitable determination of one injured general? The answer rings through history like a trumpet call. It was the will of one that reshaped the reality of thousands. The answer is self-evident, and this was not some isolated quirk of fate. This is a law of the universe, as certain as gravity. Did things just adjust themselves when the heroic Horatius, with only 2 brave companions, stood as a human dam and held back the flood of 90,000 Tuscan warriors at the gates of Rome? Did the enemy simply lose their nerve? No! They crashed against a will of iron. 90,000 men were held at bay by the sheer force of a spirit that refused to be broken, buying precious time until the bridge across the Tiber could be destroyed behind them, saving the city from certain ruin. This was not chance. It was a choice to be an immovable object in the face of an unstoppable force. And did the mighty march of Xerxes, the largest army the world had ever seen, simply halt by accident at that narrow pass in Greece? No. It was checked by Leonidas and his handful of Spartans. He did not have the numbers, the supplies, or the strategic advantage. What did he have? He had a will that had been forged in the fires of discipline, a will that chose a glorious death over a cowardly retreat. They were not just soldiers. They were a physical manifestation of defiance. They were an iron wall of Spartan will that stood firm against a tidal wave of Persian might, a stand that echoed through eternity and inspired a nation to victory. Do you see the pattern, my friends? It is not the circumstance that dictates the outcome. It is the character of the man who faces it. This incredible power is not confined to the land. Ask Themistocles, off the coast of Greece, as he faced the seemingly invincible Persian armada. Did he have more ships? Better ships? No, he had a superior mind and a superior will. He used the very environment as a weapon, luring the massive enemy fleet into the narrow straits where their numbers became a liability. He did not pray for a storm from the gods. He created a storm of his own making, a storm of tactical genius and relentless aggression that shattered the mighty armada and saved the cradle of democracy. He imposed his will upon the waves, upon the enemy, upon destiny itself. He saw not a fleet of ships, but a victory waiting to be seized. And what of the great Caesar, when he found his own army, his own hardened legions, hard-pressed and on the verge of collapse? Did he shout orders from the safety of the rear? Did he send a messenger with words of encouragement? No. 1,000 times no. He proved that leadership is action. He seized a spear and a buckler, threw himself into the thickest of the fighting, and became the living embodiment of courage. He fought as a common soldier while he reorganized his men, his presence a thunderclap that woke them from their fear. He did not just inspire victory, he physically snatched it from the jaws of defeat with his own 2 hands. He became the pivot upon which the entire battle turned. You see, my friends, circumstance is merely the raw, shapeless block of marble. It is inert, it is meaningless. Most men stare at it, hoping a masterpiece will emerge on its own. They wait for the stone to become a statue. But the master, the individual of power, sees not the marble but the angel trapped within. He takes up the hammer of persistence and the chisel of a definite purpose, and with forceful, deliberate blows, he hews away all that is not his vision. He does not pray for the stone to change, he forces it to yield. Your life right now is that block of marble. Will you stare at it, or will you pick up your tools and begin to sculpt your destiny? Was it simple luck that for years the great Napoleon did not lose a single battle in which he was personally engaged? Was he merely the beneficiary of a cosmic winning streak? The notion is absurd. Every general, every king, every emperor who faced him knew that they were not merely fighting the armies of France. They were fighting the mind and the will of Napoleon. A will that mastered details, that anticipated every possibility, that moved with lightning speed, and that projected an aura of absolute invincibility. This was not a gambler's luck. It was the mathematical certainty that follows when supreme genius is fused with an absolute, unbending will to conquer. He did not follow the rules of war, he made the rules of war follow him. And on the other side of that very same European stage stood a will of a different character, yet just as powerful. I speak of Wellington, the Iron Duke. While Napoleon was a blazing comet, Wellington was a force of nature, an immovable mountain of resolve. He fought in many climes, against many foes, and was never once conquered. Think of the sheer endurance required, the persistence. This was not the luck of a single day, but the unwavering product of a will that refused to yield, a mind that mastered defense as thoroughly as others mastered attack. He did not merely win battles, he outlasted them. He exhausted his enemies with the sheer, stubborn, magnificent force of his indomitable will to stand his ground. But this power, this world-altering will, is not solely the property of generals and dukes. It resides in the heart of every man and woman who dares to act. Look to the history of Switzerland. See Arnold von Winkelried, a simple patriot. His comrades were pinned down, helpless before a solid wall of Austrian spears, a bristling, impenetrable fortress of steel. What could they do? They could retreat, they could surrender, but Winkelried saw a third path. In a sublime act of will, he cried out, "Make way for liberty," and charged forward, not to kill but to die. He gathered to his own heart a great sheaf of enemy spears, becoming a human bridge, a living sacrifice that created the very opportunity his people needed to surge through the gap and press on to freedom. Do you see? He did not wait for an opening. He made one. This same spirit is found in Napoleon's great Marshalney, a man they called the bravest of the brave. What was his genius? On 100 different fields of battle, his specialty was to arrive when the situation was at its most desperate, to stare into the face of apparent disaster, and to transform it into a brilliant, stunning triumph. This was not a fluke. It was a habit. It was the manifestation of a will that simply refused to acknowledge defeat. When other men saw a rout, he saw a rally. When they saw an end, he saw a new beginning. He proved, time and again, that so long as the will to fight remains, the battle is never, ever truly lost. Unless you think this power is confined to the smoke and thunder of the battlefield, I want you to picture a young woman in her workshop today. She is an inventor, an entrepreneur. She has poured her savings, her heart, her very soul into a new device, and it has just failed, sputtered, died on the bench. Around her are the ghosts of a dozen previous failures, piles of sketches, burnt-out circuits. Is this not a moment of disaster? She could quit. She could surrender to the evidence, but instead, a fire lights in her eyes. She picks up her tools not with despair, but with a new idea born from the failure. That fire, my friends, is the same fire that burned in me. It is the will to snatch triumph from the ashes of your own disasters. You may say, "But Dr. Marden, I am not Napoleon. I am not a hero from the history books." And I say to you, my friend, the mountain of self-doubt you face is a greater obstacle than any physical peak. The legions of fear in your own mind are a more formidable foe than any army that ever marched. The same grit that conquered the Alps is the very same force you must summon now to conquer your procrastination. The same will that held the bridge in ancient Rome is the same will you must use to hold back the tide of your own anxieties. The battlefield has changed, my friend, but the nature of the war and the power required to win it has not changed one bit. The tools may change, but the will is eternal. Look to your own American history. Look to Commodore Perry on Lake Erie. His flagship, the Lawrence, lay disabled and shattered by British guns, a floating wreck. For any other man, the battle would have been over. His vessel was defeated, but Perry was not his vessel. His will was not tied to one ship. With his iconic banner, "Don't give up the ship" flying, he boarded a simple rowboat. Under constant enemy fire, he rowed to the Niagara, transferred his command, and sailed back into the fight to utterly silence the British guns. He refused to go down with his circumstances. He found a new vessel for his will. And what of Sheridan, riding from Winchester? He did not come upon a struggling army, he came upon a rout, a full retreat. The battle was lost, the cause was lost, the men were broken and fleeing for their lives. Logic dictated that he should turn and flee with them, to save himself. But a man of will does not obey the logic of defeat. He turned his horse not away from the enemy, but towards them, riding along the line of his retreating men. His presence, his confidence, his sheer, electrifying refusal to accept defeat was a force more powerful than the enemy's advance. He did not just stop the retreat, he reversed it, turning a mob of fugitives back into a victorious army. He was the will of the Union made manifest in a single rider. Think of Sherman's men, their fort surrounded, their situation desperate, their strength failing. They are pressed on all sides on the very brink of surrender. And then, a signal comes through. A simple message from their leader: "Hold the fort, for I am coming." What happened in that moment? Did the enemy vanish? Did the walls grow stronger? No, the men grew stronger. Their will was recharged. Why? Because they knew their leader was coming. They trusted in the certainty of his will to get there. He projected his determination across the distance, and that projection was enough to turn weary men into unbreachable iron. They held the fort not with stone and mortar, but with the strength borrowed from their commander's unbreakable promise. Now, you say, these are stories of war. What have they to do with me? I will tell you. Think of the businessman today who has just faced bankruptcy. His company, his life's work, his flagship, is a shattered wreck, just like Perry's Lawrence. His partners have fled. His credit is destroyed. He's adrift in a sea of debt and despair. It is over, but is it? He can choose to go down with the ship, or he can find a new vessel for his will. A rowboat. A tiny new idea. A small consulting job. A partnership with a friend. It looks insignificant. But from that small vessel, he can row himself back into the fight, powered by the will to succeed, until he commands a new fleet, stronger than the first. His will was not bankrupt, only his company. Young woman, you are training for a marathon. You are at mile 20. Your lungs burn, your legs are lead, and every fiber of your being is screaming at you to stop. This is your army in retreat. Your body is trying to rout. Or young man, you are facing a final examination. The material seems impossible, the hour is late, and the voice of failure is whispering in your ear. This is your Winchester. This is the moment of crisis. What do you do? Do you surrender to the logic of exhaustion? Or do you become your own Sheridan? Do you summon a deeper will, turn your horse around, and charge back into the fight? You must ride along the lines of your own fleeing faculties, and command them to turn, to stand, to conquer. Do not dare to tell me your obstacles are unique. Do not whisper that your burden is heavier. Every soul on this earth is handed a chisel and a block of stone. Your neighbor may have a finer piece of marble, and another a rougher piece of granite. It matters not. The world does not celebrate the quality of the stone. It marvels at the artistry of the carving. A masterpiece can be sculpted from the roughest rock, while the finest marble can sit untouched for a lifetime, a monument to an action. The question is not what you were given. The only question that will ever matter is, what did you do with it? Did you surrender to the grain of the stone, or did you impose upon it the magnificent vision of your own unconquerable soul? These figures from the past, Grant, Caesar, Leonidas, Wellington, they were not deities. They were flesh and blood, beset by pain, fear, and doubt, just as you are. Their secret was not a lack of weakness, but a refusal to surrender to it. They made a conscious choice. They chose to activate the divine spark of will that lies dormant in every human heart. At the moment of decision, when circumstance screamed retreat, a power deep within them roared attack. This same power is in you, right now. It is not a historical artifact. It is a living, breathing force waiting for you to call its name. It is the giant within, slumbering, waiting for the alarm bell of your definite purpose to awaken it. I see you, young athlete, on the final play of the championship game. The clock is a tyrant, ticking down the last seconds. Your body is bruised, your energy spent. The crowd's roar is a deafening wave of pressure. It is in this moment that champions are forged. It is not about the muscle, it is about the mind. The will to win rises up and commands the body to perform one last, perfect motion. It is the same will that held the fort for Sherman, the same will that snatched victory from defeat for Caesar. You are not just a player in a game. You are a commander on a field of battle, and your opponent is not the other team, but the voice of surrender in your own soul. Conquer that, and you are already a victor. I see you, creator, designer, entrepreneur. You sit in your small office late at night, the city asleep around you. A crucial deadline looms. A major client has just pulled out. Your funding is on the brink of collapse. This is your Chattanooga. The enemy campfires are the glowing red numbers on your bank statement. Seems all is lost. But then you remember your purpose. You remember the fire that started this journey. You straighten your back, take a deep breath, and make one more call. You sketch one more design. You write one more line of code. You are General Grant on his litter, in pain, but already planning the advance. You are not surrendering to the facts. You are creating new facts with the force of your will. And you, the scholar, the student, pursuing that degree, that certification, that long-term goal. The path is not a sprint. It is a grueling campaign as long and arduous as any of Wellington's wars. The mountain of books is your enemy's fortress. The endless nights of study are your long marches through hostile territory. There are no trumpets, no glorious charges. There is only the quiet, stubborn, day-by-day persistence. This is the will to endure. It is the will that says, I will not be conquered by monotony. I will not be defeated by fatigue. You must be your own Iron Duke, outlasting every challenge, knowing that victory belongs not to the brilliant, but to the persistent. But you say, Dr. Marden, my problem isn't a battle or a business. My problem is personal. It is a crisis of the heart, a loss I cannot overcome. My friend, I say to you, is your heart more broken than Winklereed's body as he embraced the spears? He took all that pain unto himself to create a path for others. You must take your pain and forge from it a path for your future self. You must become your own hero. Your past does not define you any more than the disabled Lawrence defined Perry. Find a new vessel for your spirit. Even if it is the small rowboat of hope, get in it and start rowing. The laws that govern the hero on the battlefield are the very same laws that govern the healing of your own heart. This force, this magnificent power, is not summoned by accident. It answers only to a definite command. The first step in any great achievement is the moment of decision. A clear, cold, absolute declaration to your own soul that you will not be denied. It is the moment you stop trying and start doing. It is the moment you stop wishing and start willing. This is the great divide. On one side lie all the explanations for failure, all the reasonable excuses, all the sympathy in the world. On the other side lies a single powerful, electrifying word, I will. To utter that phrase and mean, it is to set in motion the very forces of the universe that bend to a determined soul. And now, I charge you. Do not let this fire extinguish when this message ends. You must become a beacon of this truth for others. When you apply this principle, when you use your will to snatch a victory, no matter how small, you have a sacred duty to share that story. Why? Because your victory is not yours alone. It is a lesson, a piece of evidence, a source of power for every other striving soul in this great community. Go to the comments below and share your success. Tell us how you faced your Chattanooga, how you found your Niagara, how you became your own Sheridan. Your story will become the signal fire that helps another hold their fort for one more day. And for you, my friend, who is right now in the thick of the fight, for you whose fort is under siege at this very moment, I have a special charge. Perhaps you feel you have no victory to share. Perhaps you feel you are the one staring at the impassable wall of spears. Do not suffer in silence. Do not let the enemy of despair convince you that you are alone on that battlefield. To ask for aid is not a sign of weakness. It is an act of strategic genius. It is the commander calling for reinforcements. It is the first, most powerful step in your own counterattack. It is an act of will, a refusal to be vanquished by isolation. So I invite you, I implore you. If you are that striving soul facing your own private war, leave a comment below. You do not need to share the details of your battle, but simply state your resolve. Write, I am facing my Chattanooga, or I'm holding my fort. This is more than a mere comment, my friend. It is a psychological milestone. It is you, drawing your sword and planting your flag in the ground. It is a declaration to yourself and to the world that you are now officially at war with your circumstances, and that you have enlisted in this army of unconquerable souls. It is your first act of forcing a new reality into existence. Let the final word be this: the power that raised Grant from his sickbed, the power that shattered the Persian fleet, the power that turned routes into triumphs, is not a relic in a museum. It is not a story in a book. It is the living, beating heart of the universe, and it beats within your own breast. You have been walking on a diamond mine your entire life, complaining that you have no riches. You have been carrying a king's scepter, believing it to be a beggar's staff. The difference between the hero and the coward, the victor and the vanquished, the master and the slave of circumstance, is not in their stars, but in their decision to seize this power. Life will present you with two doors. The first is wide, easy, and clearly marked the path of least resistance. It leads to a comfortable room filled with excuses, sympathy, and the quiet regret of what might have been. The second door is narrow. It is heavy. It is guarded by fear and doubt, and it is marked only with a question: who dares? Beyond that door lies not a comfortable room, but an open forge. blazing with the fires of adversity. It is hot, it is difficult, and it is there that you must hammer your own destiny upon the anvil of the world. Down the easy door leads to a life of quiet desperation. The difficult door leads to a life of power. So I ask you right now, in the sacred silence of your own soul, which door will you choose? Will you continue to wait for a ship that will never come? Will you continue to stare at the uncarved marble of your life? Or will you rise up right now and declare with every fiber of your being that you are the master of your fate? Will you declare that your will is sovereign, that your purpose is non-negotiable, and that your victory is inevitable? The world is waiting for your answer. History is waiting for your answer. Your own magnificent destiny is waiting for your answer. Stop waiting, stop wishing, pick up your tools, seize your will. Go forth from this place and compel your magnificent destiny. The power is yours, the time is now.